Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Fate Stay Night was in high school DxD part 7. Hope you like it and please do subscribe and comment if you want part 8. And the story belonged to Ray O'Neal. It's not about that. She snapped at him, making the pawn jump back in fear. The tactic he used was beyond reckless. If this was a fight to the death and he was even a second too slow in his timing, he could have gotten seriously injured, or worse, died. Is that true? Sona asked me. The expression on her face showed nothing but pure seriousness. I was silent for a few seconds. I gave a sigh accompanied with a shrug, not getting the issue. I just did what I could to win. If it would have indeed been a real battle with people's lives at stake, I would have to do all I can to defeat my opponent regardless. You can't just fight like that. Meguri snapped at me. That kind of tactic can get you killed the moment you make even the slightest mistake. Perhaps, I admitted with a sigh. I haven't been formally trained in swordsmanship, so it was the best I could come up at the moment. But it's wrong. It's not just about swordsmanship, it's about your own common sense. People don't just intentionally put themselves at risk on the fly like that. She kept complaining until Kaichu put her hand in front of her, signaling her to stop. That's enough, Meguri, she demanded from her knight. But Kaichu, I said that's enough, she repeated herself in the same previous tone, only somehow much colder. As much as I agree with you that what he did was reckless, complaining to him won't help. She turned her gaze back towards me. I will overlook it this time, but I won't a second time. I will look for a proper instructor for you. Until then, any sword training is on hold. I didn't like where this was going. I had just figured out the way to calm my swords, and now she tells me that I can't use them. Now wait a second, you can't just. Do I make myself clear? Her voice felt like a layer of ice was slowly encasing my body, making me unable to move or protest. After a brief pause, I nodded slightly in defeat. Good, she nodded as she turned her back on me, looking at with the edge of her eye. Don't take this the wrong way, Emiya. If I ignore things that may result in your harm, then I am a failure as a king and as a person. Now Saji, let's get back to you. She gestured to the blonde pawn, said person simply nodding and following her. Everyone else soon did the same, and left me on my own. I was now alone in this empty corner. A feeling of disappointment currently weighing down my stomach could be felt. How is it that even though I managed to use my powers, I somehow felt like I made an even bigger mistake than not using them at all? I don't understand, why did they react like that? A person should do whatever they can in a fight where their life or lives of others are at stake, shouldn't they? I know we were just sparring, but why did Meguri react like that? Man, my life sure is getting more and more complicated. Your little master sure burned you. Someone whispered to me in an amused tone. I instantly looked around me, only to see the empty space and the others trying to help Saji further away. There was no one near me who could have said that. I must be more stressed than I thought. I'm starting to hear voices. Actually, it's voice, as in singular, also it's about time you finally heard me. I was literally talking to the sky up until now. The chuckle was much more accentuated this time, sounding rather smug as it spoke. Oh shit, Eri did warn me that if I keep getting my head bashed in the wall by Sella, I would one day go crazy. I thought she was just joking. You okay? I'm so not going to listen or respond to a figment of my imagination. Acknowledging its existence is the first step towards a mental asylum. I don't know if I should be amused or insulted by your reaction. Ignore it. Ignore it. Maybe it will go away. Okay, look kid, for one, you're not going crazy. 2. I don't know if I can go away even if I wanted to. ... Okay, I will play along. How do I know I'm not going crazy and you're not some kind of sign of schizophrenia? Look, if was indeed a type of delusion, my knowledge would be limited to your own. The mind can't give you any information you have never heard of or saw yourself. He explained to me, though it didn't help me too much. Your point is, tisk. Just my luck. Let me put this in a way you will understand. Have you ever heard of tepat, tamarind, poppy seeds, marjoram, lovage, kokum, greater galangal, fenugreek, cambodge, or maybe asafoetida? No. What are those? They're spices, many of them used in popular Indian dishes. He explained to me in a rather satisfied sounding voice. Now if I was indeed a figment of your imagination or something similar, there was no way I could know something that you personally had no way of knowing. I took a few moments and processed what he told me. Fine, what you say makes sense, but then what are you? Truth to be told, I'm not sure myself what my current status is. I never experienced something quite like this before. Gee, that sure does help me. Look kid, I'm just as confused as you are. Do you think I actually enjoy suddenly waking up inside the head of someone else? Fine, fine. You made your point. Of course I did. I see. Wait a minute. You mentioned something about talking and me not hearing you. What was that about? Well, ever since I found myself in this situation, I've been trying to make contact with you, but you didn't hear me no matter how many times I commented or ranted previously. Wait, all those random things I've been hearing from time to time was because of you. Oh, so you did hear me. Yeah, now this situation feels even weirder. Should I ask Kaichu about you? Maybe she has an idea what's going on with you. I'm going to go with a no on that one. Would you be so kind and explain why? Supernatural or otherwise, if you tell her that you are hearing voices in your head, she will either make you an appointment with a psychiatrist, or try to exorcise you in order to get rid of me. And trust me, exorcism rituals aren't pretty. You sound like you're scared. More like I'm trying to prolong my unexpected vacation as much as I can. What do you mean by that? Let's just say that my everyday job is very nasty and I never have any form of vacation, well except the times that I'm randomly summoned by a violent tsunere. Huh, nothing, I'm just ranting a little bit. My point is that I want some time to relax and recharge my batteries before I have to go back. Anyway, so, you want me to keep all of this a secret from her? Cut me some slack, will you? The moment you tell her about me, your life will get even more complicated than it already is. Also, getting rid of me isn't such a great idea. Why? For what reason should I keep you in my head? For one, you owe me for saving you. What? When did that happen? You might not remember it, but when you were fighting that man, it was me that gave you the power to stop him. Why, you mean? Yeah, somehow when you were dying there, you made a connection to me using that card you had on you. You were going to die, so I thought I might as well give you a hand. Oh, I guess I should thank you then. No need. I pretty much did it on a whim anyway, besides I was certain you were going to die after using my powers. No offense, but using powers beyond your capabilities will always have consequences. So considering that you used mine without any kind of formal training or understanding of them, your odds of survival were pretty low. Now that I think about it, I don't know if you died from the blood loss or the aftershock of using my powers. So these weird powers are actually yours. That's about it. Also, don't call them weird, it's insulting. Wait, you said that I might have died from the aftershock of using your powers. So does that mean I might die again if I keep using them? It depends actually. Unlike before, you aren't on the verge of death when using my powers. In addition, your body is much more durable than a normal human's now, plus your family and your little devil friends are also training you. So you might just be able to develop control over my abilities without any backlashes. I see. Actually, let's make some ground rules. The technique you used the first time is called install. It basically overwrites your existence with my own, making you able to use all of my techniques and skills. However, it's very taxing, and to be honest, I don't know what side effects may occur if you use it now. For that reason, I'm keeping it under restriction and sealing it off from you for the time being. So my advice is that you stick to using include. What's the difference between them? Well, while the install usually gives you the full set of the abilities, include usually gives you a signature weapon. So that being said, I recommend you learn how to wield Kansho and Bakuya properly for the moment. Wow, what? I don't know, it's just, you're being awfully helpful. Not really. I'm just making sure you don't accidentally kill yourself before I get a chance to enjoy my vacation. Just what kind of job did you have to make you like this? Believe me kid, you really don't want to know. Wait a second, we've been talking like this for a while, and I don't even know your name. Yeah, about that, I don't know it myself. Wait, what? I don't know why, but many of my memories are messed up. Normally cards like the one you use aren't sentient like how I am right now. The fact that we are communicating like is a sign that something must have happened to make us like this. Do you have any idea what exactly? I told you before, while my memories are a bit fuzzy, I know for a fact this has never happened to me before. Then what could have happened to? Did you figure something out? Wait, there was this weird dream I had, right before I awoke after I was resurrected. I saw one of my pieces get ripped out of my body and fly towards a man in a red shroud. Could that have any meaning? Red shroud you say? Yep, that's me all right. Actually, that could explain some things. It might be a long shot, but I think that when you were revived, the fragment of my consciousness that was inside of the card was also revived, thus making me a fully sentient existence that could explain how I found myself in your mind perfectly aware of myself. Then the moment you used include earlier, a proper communication line was established between us. Those evil pieces sure are interesting. Yeah, they are. Wait, how do you know about the evil pieces? I was getting to that. You see, my card somehow fused together with your own body and it created an advanced form of psychic link between us. In simpler terms, the things that you learn and experience, I will as well. You should be glad that I saw how the situation is and what really happened after the fight, otherwise I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. Why's that? Let's just say that I wouldn't really jump at the idea of having my soul damned and helping out a devil or other inhuman monsters. While I don't like to judge, most of them try to kill or torment me and any human they come across, generally speaking. I see. So then, if you don't recall your name, what should I call you? Archer. Let's leave it at that. Then nice to meet you, Archer. I'm Emiyashiro. Grr. Is something wrong? Why did you growl like that? I don't know. Somehow your name irritates me. How could my name? Kya. A high-pitched scream pulled me back to my senses while also alerting the other people in the room. I looked toward the source of the scream and saw something rather odd happening to Hanakai. Saji, get it out of my clothes. I'm trying but it won't listen to me. The said pawn complained as he tried pulling his hand back, with the others helping him. The said hand in question was covered with a black gauntlet of some sort that had a sort of lizard motif in its design. From the mouth of the lizard's head a glowing cable was somehow finding its way underneath Hanakai's clothes. I could see the tentacle-like lines squirming beneath her clothes. The life-like cable constricting throughout her body as it alternated between writhing around and squeezing her fairly large breasts, causing her face to flush red and gasp for air. The head of the cable was busy burying itself all the way in her red panty. Emiya, stop daydreaming and help them. The white-haired bishop cried out in frustration. I suddenly realized that I was too caught up observing the situation and immediately went to help the white-haired bishop with her current problem. Alright. Something tells me that I will really enjoy this vacation. And that's how my whole nightmare with Archer began. While I can't really say that he is a bad person. Oh, who the hell am I kidding? The guy is a total dick. Most of the time he just gives me the silent treatment, and the times he actually does talk to me is only when he finds something to make fun of me with or pick at my choice of actions like a critic. Seriously, this guy makes the words, annoying, take on a whole new meaning. Not only that, it took me a while to realize that if I'm not careful, he can hear every single thing that I'm thinking. I need to keep a clear and focused thought process, otherwise he would know every thought or idea that passed through my head. I really don't want to give him any more material for him to nag, mock, or use against me. I sighed and got up from the table, picking up my dishes and taking them to the sink. Oni-chan, are you busy right now? Ilya asked me. There was a grain of rice on her cheek. I grabbed a nearby cloth and gently wiped the grain off my little sister's face before tenderly patting her on the head. Looking at her, I smiled awkwardly and rubbed the back of my head as I began to speak. Actually, I have to go out for a while. At this hour, Miyu tilted her head in confusion. Where are you going? It looks like it is time to see if I have any talent for acting. Well, we have an exam soon, so some of my classmates decided to hold a group study tonight. You know it's not very nice to lie to your sisters. Oh, shut up. Do you honestly want me to tell her the truth and say, oh, don't worry, Ilya, Miyu, my devil friends and I are just going hunting for some dangerous stray devil tonight. No need to wait for me since I'll be back home late. You could at least do some half-truths. That aside, I would be more cautious if I were you. Just because your master told you that you and that Saji kid are only going as spectators to see how stray hunts are done doesn't mean you can let your guard down. You never know what could happen. I guess you're right. Oh, I see. Ilya nodded while looking disheartened. Did you need my help with something? I asked, a bit confused after noticing the small trace of disappointment on her face. She clasped her hands together while twirling her thumbs as she cutely looked up at me, hesitating what to say. Miyu proceeded to speak up in her place. Actually, we were wondering if you would like to watch some magical girls animes with us. Ayla on her own was bad enough, but I felt my resolve nearly crumble when Miyu joined in with her. Both little girls looked up at me with hopeful expressions, my inner guilt increasing exponentially by the second as they both stared at me. I barely caught myself before saying yes and mustered up my resolve. Oh, I'm sorry girls, maybe some other time. I managed to tell them while struggling to hold a straight face. desperately trying not to cave in due to their now dejected appearance and stay with them. As much as I love them, I have things to do tonight. The others no doubt wouldn't be too happy with me if I didn't show up. Also, I just can't comprehend the things that they like to watch sometimes. So I take it you aren't into the magical girl anime genre. Quote. Do I look like I am? Just asking. No need to be all hostile towards me. I'm more into sword fighting anime. You don't say. Oh, the irony. How long will you be gone? Lisrid interrupted me before I could retort to Archer. I'm not sure. I will probably arrive a bit late, so don't wait for me. I told them the truth. I'm sure the hunt will take at least a few hours, so it will probably be very late by the time I return. Anyway, have a good night everyone. I threw my school bag over my shoulder and headed straight to the front door. I stopped walking when I felt a strong grip on my shoulder. I turned around only to see Eri looking at me with a very serious expression on her face. I take it you are meeting with little Miss Citri in her peerage, am I right? Her voice was missing its usual childish tone, her eyes filled with concern for me. Yeah, I answered her honestly. Even though they know what's going on with my life right now, I try not to involve them in it. My parents have their own affairs, no need to drag them into mine as well if I don't have to. I understand. She nodded as she put a hand in her pocket. There is something I want you to carry with you at all times. This made me raise an eyebrow, a good luck charm perhaps. Eri, look, you didn't have to. No, I insist. She grabbed my hand and placed it in it. Boys your age should always carry one with them. This made me curious on what could be so important. I looked at the item she placed in my hand. A small circular object covered in square plastic cover. Eri. I began slowly, as my eye and corner of my mouth started twitching very badly. I honestly never thought the day would come that I was ever going to ask my mom this question. Could you please tell me why are you giving me a condom? She put her hand on her hip, and pointed her finger directly in front of my face. Now listen very carefully, Shuru. As much as I would love to see you enjoy the springtime of your youth together with a nice girl, or girls depending on the case. As your mother, I can't let you be reckless. What? Even though I would jump up and down in the air with joy at the idea of many cute grandchildren, I wouldn't like waking up one day to find the parents of a high school girl at our front door angry at you for knocking up their daughter. Okay, again now. What? Taking in account that the group you're now involved with has a number of 7 lovely young school girls, all of which had never had any boyfriends, and if my sources are correct, none of which have even kissed a boy before. The risk of some of them falling for you is pretty high. If I were to add all of these factors together, the risk of you getting someone pregnant increases by a large margin. So I must make sure that you properly protect yourself. You know what? I didn't know what to think about her the first time I saw her, but I'm really starting to like your mother. Shut up, Archer. The only reason you're saying that is because she is the second person after you that gives me such a hard time. And that's why I like her. I can't believe we are having this conversation right now. I covered my forehead in frustration with my hand, trying to ignore the gleeful smugness in Archer's voice. Eri crossed her arms under her chest and puffed up her cheeks in a cute pout. I know, right? I keep telling Kuritsugu that he needs to have the father-son talk with you, but he always crawls his way out of it. Right. I managed to mutter while turning around to leave in an attempt to help keep my sanity intact. I will leave now. I wouldn't want to be late. Shuru. Her voice resonated in the air like the sound of a whip, stopping me in my tracks. All jokes aside, please try to be careful. You can never know what might happen. As I looked back, I could see the genuine concern in her eyes. Sometimes I forget that under all the quirkiness, silliness, and childish personality, Eri is still my mom, and she would feel uneasy like any mom would, knowing that I'm doing something dangerous. I will try. She smiled bitterly at me, with her eyes slightly cringing. Please be careful, Shuru. The life of people like us is a constant dance with death. Don't worry. I closed my eyes and gave her a reassuring smile. I was given a second chance at life and I'm not going to waste it. I told her as I stepped out of the house and began walking towards the school. So, why are you walking? I don't know, maybe it's the fact that my demonic energy is so weak that I can't even do a basic teleportation spell. No need to be all sarcastic with me. Like you aren't like that with me all the time. Hey, just trying to make some small talk. You said something earlier about sword fighting anime. Do you want to talk about one? Seriously, you want to talk about anime? I'm kind of bored. Plus, do you have anything better to do until you arrive at the school? Fine, I recently got hooked on one about this teenage boy that could see ghosts. One day so let me get this straight. He and his dad pulled off that final technique out of nowhere without any hint or mentioning of it up until then, sacrificed all of his powers to defeat that weird butterfly guy, and now is just a normal human. That's about it. And they ended the story like that. Actually, there are still some episodes I need to see. Plus I haven't read the manga, so there might still be stuff I don't know. That's good then. I mean, there are a lot of questions unanswered. Hope they won't add any more filler though. Let's talk about that later. It's time to get to work. I opened the door to the student council room and greeted all the other members. Good evening everyone. The first one to notice was Saji, who appeared rather annoyed. About time you got here, Emiya. What took you so long? Oh, I just lost track of time while chatting with the sarcastic jerk that's taking a vacation in the back of my head. That, and I had dinner with my family and I didn't notice how late it was already. All devils present were silent and blinking owlishly at me as if I had two heads. Kaichu put her hand to her mouth and made a light coughing sound. Weird sense of humor aside. Next time try to be more punctual. If only they knew that I wasn't joking. Let's start the briefing. She gestured to her fellow bespectacled devil. Tsubaki. Yes. She waved her hand and a magic circle appeared in the middle of the room. From it a hologram of a man appeared. His large and sculpted physique could put most bodybuilders to shame. Recently we received reports of people disappearing around the outskirts of the town. Right around the time of said disappearances we received a report stating a stray devil was sighted around the same area. Judging by the description, we are dealing with the stray devil Scaran, a low-class devil with strength estimated of that of a mid-level 1, former rook of the heir of the Valak household. He killed 2 members of his household and critically wounded his master, ripping off one of his arms in the process. He managed to escape before the incident was discovered and immediately went into hiding. He constantly changes his base of operation, while occasionally resurfacing and killing any unfortunate bystanders he encounters. The hologram changed, now displaying a forest. If our sources are correct, he will be in our territory for a few days. If we don't act tonight, chances are we will lose all traces of him. So this is the target we are hunting. Sounds like a nasty piece of work. Is there anything we need to know about his abilities? Actually there is. Shinra-senpai waved her hand and the image changed to one of him elbowing a man in the face. During his youth he was a Muay Thai practitioner. After he was reincarnated he implemented it into his own personalized fighting style, making him stand out during raiding games as a rather violent and brutal individual. You should all be very careful of his knee and elbow strikes. Tsubaki finished her description of the stray devil. Our master then followed up where her queen left off. Due to his close-quarter fighting style, we will need to fight him at a proper distance. Kaichu explained, getting up from her desk and walking in the middle of us. Tsubaki, Hanakai, Kusaka, and I will be the main strike force. Due to his trait as a rook he will have a high endurance, so it may take some time before he goes down. She took a moment and looked over to the side. To prevent him from attacking us, Yura and Meguri will act as vanguard. Considering that the main strike force is made of long-ranged fighters, that may be a good idea. Using magic-based attacks to weaken him is actually a solid approach, and should he try and get too close to them the vanguard would step in and take him down while main strike force provides support. But there is one problem. What about us? Saji's question took the words right out of my mouth. You and Emiya are still inexperienced when it comes to real combat and have yet to understand and master your powers. Letting you join in the battle from the beginning could prove to be more dangerous than beneficial, so you will only observe for now while Nomura will guard you. However, should something unexpected happen, you too must be ready to join us and act as support if situation calls for it. Understood. I agreed to what our leader said. Saji only nodded silently in response, an unsatisfied scowl was slightly present on his face. Now then, our master straightened her glasses as a large magic circle appeared underneath us. It's time to go hunting. We teleported to the designated area and began our search. The place was a semi-abandoned estate located at the outskirts of a forest. We already searched all throughout the forest and inside the old vandalized house. To say that our search was productive would be a bit of a stretch. You sure he's here? Saji complained as he kicked a tree in frustration. He kept repeating the same question for the past hour, and to be honest it was somewhat beginning to get on my nerves. Reports say he was sighted in this area. Shinra-senpai said as she rubbed the bridge of her nose once again. No doubt she was also getting tired of Saji's whining by this point. Then why haven't we seen anything until now? The blonde pawn snapped as he kicked a small pebble on the ground. If you were a wanted dangerous fugitive, would you rather try and stay hidden or go around like a jackass screaming, "Come and get me bitches"? Yura rolled her eyes in boredom. While not the same choice of words I would have used, she did make a good point. If the target is indeed here, he's probably hiding somewhere we either can't see, or wouldn't consider checking. And here I was hoping to get back home quick. Hanakai sighed pessimistically. Is something wrong, Momo? Kusaka asked her fellow bishop. There was a movie I really wanted to watch tonight. I left in a hurry and didn't get to turn on the recorder. Is it the one you told me about yesterday? Yeah, and I was so hyped to see it. Ignoring their rather easygoing chat, I trailed my eyes around the courtyard of the mansion. There was no trace of activity in the house, so the target likely didn't use it as a hideout, otherwise we would have found something. A gentle breeze brushed against my hair. The cold night air was rather pleasant. I soon widened my eyes, however, as I felt a scent from the wind. It felt repulsive, but at the same time it felt very familiar. Almost as if it was something my body was used to feeling. Is something wrong, Emiya-senpai? Nomura question broke me out of my trance. No, it's nothing. I shook my head and went towards where the wind blew. The scent was gone, but I'm sure it came from somewhere close by. As my eyes were scanning the area, I suddenly stopped and fixed my gaze one of the series of large rocks in the middle of the courtyard. Weird, as I looked at it, I could feel an unusual tingling in my eyes. For some reason, no matter how much I stared at it, there was only one thought that went through my mind. It doesn't belong here, I muttered to myself. I somehow knew that despite the others around it, this rock was placed here by someone. I grabbed it and with some effort pushed it aside. I stared curiously at what was underneath it. Hey guys. They all turned their heads as they heard my shout. I think I might have found something. They all rushed to my side and stared at what was underneath the rock I had moved. A secret entrance? Kusaka asked curiously. It was a metallic trapdoor, just big enough for a large devil to squeeze through. No wonder we didn't find anything. Saji face-palmed himself in frustration. Good job, Emiya. Yura gave me a toothy grin while giving me a pat on the back. Even if she told me that, I only found it by instinct rather than insight. Now that I think about it, recently there were times I felt like I knew how to do things that I shouldn't have any knowledge of. Everyone, keep a sharp lookout from now on. Our master ordered us as she opened the trap door. The ladder under the trap door led us deep underground. When we reached the bottom, I started scanning the place. The tunnels seemed to be man-made, so my guess is that this place might have been a bunker or an escape tunnel of some kind. Guess he is hiding in these tunnels. Saji commented aloud as he looked around. My eyes slowly drifted to the person that had been ignoring me for the past few days. I walked next to her and slowly tapped my finger on her shoulder. Say, Meguri. I began slowly, getting her attention. Are you still angry at me for what happened during our spar? She blinked repeatedly for a few seconds while staring at me in surprise. She immediately threw her hands up and waved them left and right as she began to speak. Oh no, I'm not angry at you or anything, I just needed some time to cool down. She said that with a smile, and yet I still felt there was a big gap between us. Something must have shown on my face as she went on to explain herself. Look, Emi-chan. Meguri sighed as she looked at me with melancholic eyes. The only thing I ever had were my sword skills which I had to work myself till exhaustion to develop. So when I see people pulling foolish or reckless stunts like the one you did, it makes me feel really angry. This made me curious. My eyes drifted towards her palms, they were covered in calluses. Those weren't the palms of a high school girl, those were the palms of one who is constantly working themselves to the extreme. While what she said may answer some questions, at the same time for me it only brought me more. Why? It's because it looks like it didn't matter to you. The skills you showed me might not be yours, but whoever developed them must have poured his soul into perfecting them, yet by doing reckless moves like that I couldn't help but feel like it was all for nothing. I took a moment to process everything she said. I guess for someone who likely worked hard all her life to develop her skills and defend herself, seeing someone treat his own life without any proper respect and develop their skills merely as a means to an end must be rather frustrating. I rubbed the back of my head awkwardly. I will try to be more careful if that makes you feel any better. She didn't say anything and walked past me, but I did catch a glimpse of a small smile. As I continued to walk, I noticed that everyone up ahead stopped moving and were just standing in place. Oh great, we just had to find a crossroad. Hanakai sighed as she rubbed the brow of her forehead. We can't trace his demonic energy and splitting up isn't such a great idea either. So what do we do now? Kusaka asked our master. She was silent and stared at the 4 paths that were in front of her. I also took a curious look towards the multiple paths and my eyes narrowed as I looked at the 4th one on the right. I felt a twinge in my nose once again. The same sensation I felt earlier was back now, but this time it was much more potent than before. I slowly made my way towards the source. What do you think, Emiya-senpai? Nomura asked me. I ignored her and continued walking. There was something down here. Emiya, Kaichu must have noticed my behavior. Where are you going? I ignored Shinra-senpai's question and continued moving onward. Eventually I reached a massive metal door. The scent was literally oozing behind it. I slowly opened the door and proceeded to walk in. The room was pitch black and I couldn't see anything. I checked the nearby walls for any light switch. Luckily, I found one and flipped it on. The light bulb or circuit must have been old as it repeatedly turned on and off, alternating between the 2 states. Those brief flashes of light, however, were enough for me to see what was inside of the room. I regretted my previous action of turning on the switch immediately the moment I truly saw what had caught my attention. Hey Emiya, I heard Saji's annoyed tone as he approached me. He was at the room entrance. The lights flickered to black. Damn it Emiya, would you stop going? The lights went back on and Saji froze in his tracks the moment he saw what was ahead of me. I heard multiple footsteps behind him. The others must have followed after us. Saji-senpai, is something wrong? Nomura asked, confused as she looked at the trembling body of her fellow pawn. Saji's body began convulsing. He grabbed his mouth and fell to his knees while his other arm instantly reached out for the wall next to him. When he opened his mouth, what came out weren't words, but a physical substance. A painful groan echoed throughout the room as he violently threw up the contents of his stomach onto the ground. Saji, what's wrong? Kusaka rushed to his side and patted him on the back, trying to calm him down. Kaichu didn't waste time and walked inside the room to see what had caused such an extreme reaction from her pawn. Similar to him, she froze in place as she saw the gruesome scene. She didn't throw up like Saji did, but her eyes cringed in both pain and disgust as she averted her gaze. Her skin quickly losing its color, becoming even paler from what she had just seen. The other girls soon followed suit and looked inside. They weren't able to hold out like Kaichu did and were soon getting sick from the horrific sight, much like Saji did. Who could blame them? I took another look around the room. There were 5 bodies in all of which were tied up in chains connected to the walls. The first body had its abdomen slashed open, the ribs having each been snapped in half, the internal organs left exposed as the intestines were hanging outside the body. The second one had its lower jaw partially ripped off. The jaw was hanging loosely in the air by a small piece of flesh that seemed to refuse to rip off completely. No eyes were present in her head, just 2 hollow eye sockets. The nose was split open like a double closet, showing what was inside. The third corpse was missing its lower half, a part of her insides were hanging suspended in air while the others were laying right under her dismembered form. The fourth one had its limbs bent and snapped in an unnatural fashion. The broken bones from the arms and legs were sticking out. The white of the bones couldn't be seen from all the blood and yellow marrow. The fifth and final body was the most intact compared to the others. This one had a number of random objects piercing into it, creating multiple puncture wounds. The objects used weren't stabbed randomly, each of them was piercing an organ or artery, and it was done in such a way that it would make the person slowly bleed themselves to death. When I first entered the room, I thought that the walls were painted red. I was wrong. They were red from the blood of the victims. The floor was also covered in several small pools of blood and scattered pieces of ripped flesh and bone. I understood now what the scent that has been calling me to this room was. Death. How horrible, I heard Kaichu muttering with a disturbed voice. The reports did say that he was a sadist, but this. Did that stray devil really do all of this? Shinra-senpai let out a strained voice. The difficulty of keeping herself from retching could be noticed. My eyes landed on the person with the puncture wounds. I slowly walked towards him. Emiya, I heard Kusaka muffle. When I arrived in front of the body, I put my index and middle finger on his throat to check his pulse. Nothing. They're all dead, I concluded as I drew my hand back. It was a bit of a long shot, but I had hoped that because this one had the less lethal wounds and was newer than the others, there might still be a chance he's alive. Emiya. I turned around when I heard Kaichu's disturbed voice. She and everyone else were staring at me in disbelief. Their eyes filled with nothing but shock, confusion, and fear. My eyes blinked briefly to their reaction. What? No one said a thing. Whenever they looked like were about to say something, they remained silent. Saji made his way through them, his face pale, rubbing his mouth with his sleeve. Are you fucking right in the head? He snapped out in rage and disgust at me. He pointed his finger towards the bodies. Just look at what he did to them. You walked in here without so much as flinching and act like it's nothing really special for you to walk through so much blood and guts. How the hell can you even look at this horror show and not be affected? My mind went blank when I understood what he meant. I just walked my way across a pool of blood and human remains, yet didn't even stop for a single second. Despite seeing something as gruesome as this, I was completely unfazed. How is this not affecting me? Why isn't it affecting me? Why can I look at this gruesome scene and not feel any sort of mental burden by it? I do regret not arriving in time to save the people here in the way they must have suffered as they died. But their bloody mangled corpses don't affect me. It's like, I'm used to seeing death. It's like I'm used to seeing worse than this. Gah. Ha ha. I grabbed my chest as I gasped for air. Something is just wrong. I just. Bam. What was that? My breath calmed down when I heard Shinra Senpai's voice. I looked around and my eyes got stuck on the door on the other side of the room. Everyone regroup, Kaichu ordered, and everyone quickly responded. I was somewhat sluggish due to still being in shock, so I lagged a step behind everyone. Bam. Over there. Yura shouted as the door was smashed open. From it a tower of a man slowly walked in. It was our target Scarin, but something seemed wrong. When he got under the light of the room, we all saw something that we weren't expecting. The stray devil that looked like he had an armor made out of pure muscle, was drenched from head to toe in his own blood. He had 5 puncture wounds, 27 lacerations, and most notable was the fact that he was missing his whole right arm. His eyes were wild and the expression on his face showed nothing but pure unadulterated fear on it. He let out a twisted gasp before his legs gave out and he collapsed on the floor. His body was shaking. He saw us and tried to open his mouth. Monster, was all that he could manage saying before his eyes rolled up and body gave one final spasm. A moment later he went silent, not even a single twitch could be seen from his body. He died. The air seemed to freeze in the room, no one was moving or saying anything. We were all far too stunned by the series of events that had just occurred. Saji seemed to break out of shock first. What the hell is going on here? Why is our target dead? He screamed in both fear and confusion. My eyes drifted back to the door he came from as I heard some footsteps coming from it. A figure began slowly emerging from the shadows. Who? What do we have here? A small band of devil kids. The figure chuckled cheerfully as it made its way to us. I took note of the person's appearance. It was a man, just a few years older than me, dressed in a pair of skin-tight black jeans, a white t-shirt, and black leather jacket. His hair was shoulder length, spiky at the ends, and blonde in color. His skin was an unhealthy pale, his eyes an intense orange, and finally under his left eye there was tattoo reminiscent of a claw. The thing that really got my attention was the black katana he was holding. I kept getting this eerie uneasy feeling whenever I looked at it. My eyes noticed the blood that was dripping off the black blade of the katana. Did you do this to him? I couldn't help but ask him despite already knowing the answer. He simply shrugged and let off a brief chuckle. Kinda. I was just minding my own business taking a midnight stroll in these tunnels and suddenly that stray idiot appeared and tried to turn me into his new torture toy. He even made me drop my burger, could you believe that? You. I turned to Kaichu who looked at him in disbelief. Spiky yellow hair, intense orange eyes, a small claw-like tattoo over the left cheek, and a black katana, no. Not you. Her eyes turned tense as she looked at the man while tightly clenching her fists. Kaichu, who is he? Someone spoke up asking her. She took deep breath and was silent for a brief moment, her eyes never looking away from the man in front of us. Stray Devil Kurosega. While I and the other student council members were confused, Shinra Senpai soon went pale upon hearing the name. Her face molding into one of pure fear, judging by that reaction she recognized him and him being here wasn't a very good thing for us. The man on the other hand just whistled. Oh my, did someone just recognize me? Man, being a celebrity sure is hard. I could see the uneasiness and anxiety in my master's body language, but she still tried to keep a composed appearance as she spoke. State your actions. Kurosega lightly waved his sword from left to right, a bored expression was all that he displayed as he rolled his eyes. No need to be all formal and shit with me, I was just passing by and felt this guy's presence. Next thing I know, I walk in on him doing his little torture fetish. So I did what any friendly neighborhood stray devil would do and killed the disgusting son of a bitch. So am I wrong to assume that you don't wish us harm? Kaichu asked carefully. The tension around her seemed to have lightened up slightly. Actually, you aren't wrong. Now that you saw me, I can't really just let you leave. Don't take it personally, but I just got the underworld off my back and I would really hate it if they managed to track me down again so soon. He said cheekily as he rubbed the back of his neck as if he was sheepish. I take it even if I did promise you to keep secret of this event, you wouldn't let us go, am I right? She tried to reason with him. The earlier tension was back now, but even stronger than before. No doubt whoever this man is, he must be very dangerous to make her react like this. Unfortunately for you and your little friends over there, you are very correct. Besides, I have a rule. The easygoing air around him vanished completely. A feral grin stretched across his face, as his eyes glowed maliciously. If I ever stumble across any pure-blooded devil shits, I will kill them immediately. Kaichu let out a tisk before turning to us. Everyone prepared to teleport now. Kaichu. Everyone, myself included, were confused by her sudden order. He isn't someone we can fight. Kurosage was a former human who was considered a prodigy among reincarnated devils. He was the queen of the heir of the Barbados household and had a very prominent future ahead of him, but he went mad and slaughtered his master and her whole peerage. I saw rating game matches in which he participated. His strength is equal, perhaps even greater than that of a high-class devil. She bitterly admitted as she glared back at the man she was warning us about. He isn't someone we can fight at our current level. This made almost everyone present here go wide-eyed in fear. Hanakai and Kusaka immediately began forming their magic circles to teleport us away, only to see said circles simply shatter apart in the air. Kaichu, we can't teleport. What? She almost snapped at them. No doubt the pressure of the situation was beginning to mentally strain her. Well duh. Kurosage snorted. I didn't spend my time filling these tunnels with anti-teleportation runes as a hobby, you know. Oh, don't look at me like that. I just didn't want that stray son of bitch escaping on me. Tisk. We don't have a choice. Kaichu straightened herself. Everyone regroup. Same formation. We will fight him, but the moment we see an opportunity to retreat, we are escaping this place. What? You can't be serious, Kaichu. Saji snapped in frustration. He was already somewhat emotionally unstable from what he saw earlier. The appearance of Kurosage didn't seem to make things any better. There's no way we can't beat this blonde-haired punk if we all fight him together. That idiot. This wasn't the time to let your pride get to you. Even if we have a numerical advantage against him, we have no idea what he is actually capable of. Guess I know who will die first. Kurosage said with a bloodthirsty grin on his face as he appeared right in front of Saji. When did you? Saji muttered in shock as Kurosage swung his katana. Saji. The katana was brought down. The sound of flesh getting slashed and bones getting cut echoed in the room. Now isn't this interesting? Kurosage whistled in surprise. Why? Saji muttered incoherently as he looked at who was in front of him. Why did you do that? I opened my mouth to talk, a loud gasp escaped from it. My body, moved on its own before I could think. I stuttered as my blood was gushing out of my body. I managed to step in between them at the last moment, but didn't have enough time to activate include and defend myself. The slash started from my hip and went all the way up to my throat. The artery in it was severed, blood was erupting violently from my neck as it spurted out of me. The world around me seemed to spin. I suddenly fell to the ground. I could only hear a single thing as everything started fading to black. Shuru.